Here's why you don't get the respect you think you deserve. You're trying to withdraw respect from an account where you've never made any deposits. You want people to honor your opinions when you've never proven your judgment. Trust your word when you've broken promises. And value your time when you've wasted theirs. You expect respect based on your intentions while ignoring the impact of your actions. The harsh reality is that respect operates like a bank account. You can't take out what you haven't put in. And most people are trying to live off credit that was never approved. There was a man named David Thompson who ran a manufacturing company with over 200 employees. He had the corner office, the expensive suits, the luxury car, and the reserved parking spot. Every morning he would walk through those glass doors, expecting heads to turn, expecting acknowledgement, expecting what he believed was his due respect. But what David didn't know was happening behind those closed doors, in those break room conversations, in those whispered exchanges between his employees. One evening, David stayed late to finish some paperwork. As he walked past the conference room, he heard laughter. Curious, he stopped and listened. What he heard changed everything. His own employees were mimicking his voice, copying his mannerisms, making jokes about his demands for respect. They called him His Royal Highness behind his back. The very people he thought respected him were actually mocking him when he wasn't around. That night, David sat in his empty office and asked himself a question that every person must eventually face. Why don't people respect me? The answer wasn't pretty, but it was necessary. You see, David had confused something that millions of people confuse every single day. He had confused authority with respect, position with honor, title with reverence. Authority can be given to you in a moment. Someone can sign a paper, hand you a badge, give you a title, and suddenly you have authority over others. But respect is something entirely different. Respect must be earned. One interaction at a time, one decision at a time, one moment of integrity at a time. You cannot buy respect. You cannot demand respect. You can only earn it. The problem is that most people spend their entire lives trying to get respect through all the wrong methods. They think if they get louder, people will respect them more. They think if they get richer, respect will automatically follow. They think if they get a bigger title, a better position, a fancier office, that respect will just appear. But here's what I want you to understand. Respect has nothing to do with what you have and everything to do with who you are. David's employees didn't disrespect him because of his position. They disrespected him despite his position. Why? Because he had spent years confusing fear with respect. When people do what you say because they're afraid of losing their job, that's not respect, that's compliance. When people smile at you because they have to, not because they want to, that's not respect, that's survival. When people say yes sir and no sir but roll their eyes the moment you turn around, you don't have their respect, you have their resentment. True respect creates a completely different atmosphere. When people truly respect you, they don't just follow your instructions, they go beyond what you ask. They don't just show up on time, they come early. They don't just do their job, they do it with excellence because they believe in you as a person, not just your position. I once knew a man named George who worked as a janitor in a large office building. George had no title, no corner office, no reserved parking spot. But something incredible happened whenever George walked into a room. Conversations would pause. People would genuinely smile. Even the executives would stop their important meetings to say hello to George. Why? Because George had something that can't be bought or demanded. He had earned genuine respect. George never asked anyone to respect him. He never demanded it. He never even thought about it. But he got it because he understood something that David didn't understand. Respect flows naturally to those who live with integrity, consistency, and genuine care for others. George treated everyone the same. Whether they were the CEO or the newest intern, he kept his word, no matter how small the promise. He worked with excellence, even when no one was watching. He genuinely cared about people's problems and would go out of his way to help solve them. The difference between David and George wasn't education, money, or position. The difference was character. David spent his energy trying to get respect. George spent his energy being respectable. David focused on what people should give him. George focused on what he could give to people. David demanded honor. George lived honorably. Here's the truth that will change your life if you really understand it. People don't respect what you say you are. They respect what you consistently prove yourself to be. Your words about yourself mean nothing if your actions contradict them. You can tell people you're trustworthy all day long, but if you break promises, they won't trust you. You can tell people you're a leader, but if you don't serve others, they won't follow you. You can tell people you deserve respect, but if you don't live respectably, they won't respect you. The mirror doesn't lie. When people don't respect you, it's not because they have a problem, it's because you have a problem. When people consistently treat you in ways that feel disrespectful, you must look in the mirror and ask yourself, what am I doing or not doing that creates this response in others? This isn't about blame. This isn't about shame. This is about taking responsibility for the energy you bring into every room, every relationship, every interaction. The respect you receive from others is always a reflection of the respect you have for yourself and the respect you show to others. If you want different results, you must become a different person. If you want people to treat you with honor, you must first learn to live with honor. The transformation begins with you. And it begins right now. Now let me tell you something that most people don't want to hear but desperately need to understand. The reason people don't respect you might have nothing to do with them and everything to do with how you see yourself. You see, there's a principle that governs human relationships that's as reliable as gravity. People will never respect you more than you respect yourself. Think about it this way. If you don't value your own time, why should others value it? If you don't keep your word to yourself, why should others believe your word to them? If you don't set boundaries for how you should be treated, why should others respect those non-existent boundaries? The respect others show you is simply a mirror reflecting the respect you show yourself. I want to tell you about a woman named Elizabeth who worked as a research scientist at a prestigious pharmaceutical company. Elizabeth was brilliant. She had 2 advanced degrees, published research papers, and her work had led to breakthrough discoveries that saved lives. On paper, Elizabeth should have been the most respected person in her department. But year after year, she watched less qualified colleagues get promoted while she remained in the same position. She watched her ideas get credited to others. She watched meetings proceed without her input. Even though she was often the most knowledgeable person in the room, Elizabeth couldn't understand why this kept happening. She had the credentials, she had the results, she had the track record. But what Elizabeth didn't realize was that she was sending invisible signals that told everyone around her exactly how to treat her. Every time someone interrupted her in meetings, she would simply stop talking and never finish her point. Every time her boss gave her extra work without extra compensation, she would accept it with a smile. Every time a colleague took credit for her ideas, she would stay silent to avoid confrontation. Elizabeth thought she was being professional, humble, and cooperative. But what she was actually doing was teaching people that her thoughts weren't important enough to finish. Her time wasn't valuable enough to protect, and her contributions weren't significant enough to defend. She was training people to disrespect her through her own behavior. The tragic part is that Elizabeth genuinely didn't understand why she kept getting passed over. She would go home and complain to her husband about how unfair her workplace was, how politics mattered more than performance, how good people always finish last. But the truth was much simpler and much more painful. Elizabeth didn't respect herself enough to demand the respect she deserved from others. Here's what Elizabeth didn't know. Every time you accept disrespectful treatment without consequence, you're actually teaching people that this is acceptable behavior toward you. Every time you allow someone to waste your time, you're communicating that your time has no value. Every time you fail to speak up for yourself, you're telling others that your voice doesn't matter. Your silence becomes their permission. So this doesn't mean you should become aggressive or confrontational. It means you must learn to value yourself appropriately. When you truly respect yourself, you naturally create an atmosphere where others respect you too. You don't have to demand it. You don't have to fight for it. You simply expect it. And that expectation changes everything about how you show up in the world. People can sense your internal relationship with yourself from the moment you walk into a room. They can feel whether you believe you belong there or whether you're hoping they'll let you stay. They can tell whether you think your opinions matter or whether you're just grateful to be included. They can sense whether you see yourself as valuable or whether you see yourself as lucky to be tolerated. This internal foundation determines everything. If you don't believe you deserve respect, you'll unconsciously behave in ways that ensure you don't get it. You'll apologize for things that aren't your fault. You'll accept blame for problems you didn't create. You'll settle for treatment that deep down you know isn't right. You'll convince yourself that this is just how life works, that some people get respect and others don't, that you're just not one of the lucky ones. But here's the truth. Respect isn't luck. Respect isn't a gift that some people receive and others don't. Respect is a direct result of how you see yourself and how you teach others to see you. When you change your internal foundation, everything else changes automatically. The most respected people in the world aren't necessarily the smartest, the richest, or the most talented. They're the people who have learned to honor themselves in a way that naturally inspires others to honor them too. They understand that self-respect isn't selfish, it's necessary. It's the foundation upon which all other respect is built. Until you fix this internal foundation, nothing else will work. You can learn all the techniques, read all the books, attend all the seminars. But if you don't fundamentally believe you deserve respect, you'll sabotage every opportunity to receive it. There's something that destroys respect faster than any mistake you could ever make, faster than any failure you could ever experience, faster than any weakness you could ever show. It's inconsistency. When people can't predict what version of you they're going to get, they stop trusting you. And when they stop trusting you, respect becomes impossible. Let me tell you about two men who worked in the same industry, started their careers at the same time, and had similar opportunities. Their names were Michael and James, and their stories will show you why one became the most respected leader in his field, while the other struggled to keep even basic respect from his own team. Michael was the kind of person who did exactly what he said he would do, exactly when he said he would do it. If Michael told you he would call you at 3 o'clock, your phone would ring at 3 o'clock. If Michael promised to review your proposal by Friday, you could count on having his feedback by Thursday evening. If Michael said he would be at a meeting, he was there 10 minutes early. His word was his bond, and everyone knew it. James, on the other hand, was brilliant and charming. He could sell ice to people living in winter. He had great ideas and big dreams. But James had one fatal flaw. He was inconsistent with his commitments. He would promise to deliver reports that arrived days late. He would schedule meetings and then reschedule them at the last minute. He would commit to projects and then hand them off to others without explanation. James always had good reasons, valid excuses, compelling explanations for why things didn't happen as promised. Here's what happened over time. People started making backup plans whenever they had to depend on James. They would smile when he made promises, but they would quietly prepare for those promises to be broken. They stopped including him in important decisions because they couldn't count on him to follow through. Meanwhile, Michael's reputation grew stronger with every kept promise, every met deadline, every fulfilled commitment. The difference wasn't talent. James was actually more naturally gifted than Michael. The difference was an opportunity. They both had access to the same resources and connections. The difference was consistency. Michael understood something that James never learned. Your character is built one small decision at a time, and respect is earned through the accumulation of reliable behavior over time. People don't respect you for your potential, they respect you for your performance. They don't respect you for what you say you'll do. They respect you for what you actually do. And they certainly don't respect you for your excuses. No matter how valid those excuses might be, every broken promise, no matter how small, withdraws respect from your account with that person. Every kept commitment, no matter how minor, makes a deposit. Most people don't realize that others are keeping a mental scorecard of their reliability. They think people forget about the small things, but people remember everything. They remember when you said you'd return their call and didn't. They remember when you promised to help with their project and disappeared. They remember when you committed to being somewhere and showed up late or not at all. Your private character determines your public respect. What you do when no one is watching shapes how people treat you when everyone is watching. If you can't keep promises to yourself, you won't keep promises to others. If you can't maintain discipline in private, you won't maintain integrity in public. If you can't be consistent with small things, you can't be trusted with big things. The path to respect is paved with consistency. Every single day, you're either building your reputation or destroying it. Every commitment you make is either strengthening your credibility or weakening it. Every promise you keep is either increasing your value or decreasing it. Consistency isn't glamorous, but it's powerful. It's the foundation that makes everything else possible. Here's a truth that will transform how you think about respect. People respect what adds value to their lives, not what takes from their lives, not what burdens their lives, what adds value to their lives. If you want to understand why some people command respect wherever they go, while others struggle to get basic acknowledgement, look at the value they bring to every situation. Let me tell you about a man named Robert, who owned a small auto repair shop in a working class neighborhood. Robert didn't have a college degree. He didn't wear expensive suits or drive fancy cars. He didn't have a big title or impressive office, but Robert had something more powerful than all of those things combined. He made everyone's life better simply by being in it. When people brought their cars to Robert, they didn't just get their vehicles fixed, they got an education. Robert would take the time to explain what was wrong, why it happened, and how to prevent it in the future. He would show customers exactly what he was doing and why. When someone couldn't afford a major repair, Robert would teach them how to do smaller maintenance tasks themselves to extend their car's life. He never charged for advice, never rushed people out the door, never made anyone feel stupid for not understanding automotive issues. But Robert's value went far beyond car repairs. When Mrs. Henderson was struggling as a single mother and her car broke down, Robert not only fixed it for free, but also taught her teenage son basic automotive skills so he could help maintain the family vehicle. When the local high school needed someone to teach basic car maintenance to students, Robert volunteered his time every Saturday morning. When elderly customers needed rides to medical appointments while their cars were being repaired. When people came up saying they needed money for car and the carpool suckers needed repaired, Robert would drive them personally within 5 years. Robert became the most respected man in his entire community. City council members would seek his advice on local issues. Business owners would ask for his opinion on important decisions. Parents would bring their children to meet Robert as an example of integrity and service. People would drive across town to have their cars serviced by Robert, even when there were cheaper options closer to home. What made Robert special wasn't his technical skills, though he was excellent at his job. What made Robert special was his understanding of a fundamental principle. When you consistently add value to people's lives, respect flows to you naturally and automatically. Most people approach relationships with a what's in it for me mentality. They focus on what they can get rather than what they can give. They think about how others can serve them rather than how they can serve others. They want to be valued without adding value. They want to be respected without being respectable. They want to receive without giving. But here's what they don't understand. Respect is always a response to value. Always. People don't respect you because of your needs. They respect you because of your contributions. They don't respect you because of your problems. They respect you because of your solutions. They don't respect you because of what you lack. They respect you because of what you offer. The difference between being needed and being valued is crucial. When you're needed, people depend on you out of necessity. When you're valued, people appreciate you out of choice. Being needed creates dependency. Being valued creates respect. Robert understood that true value isn't about what you take from people, it's about what you give to people. It's not about what you extract from relationships, it's about what you contribute to relationships. Every interaction became an opportunity for Robert to add value, to solve problems, to make life better for someone else. When you approach every relationship, every conversation, every situation with the question, how can I add value here? Everything changes. You stop being a burden and become a blessing. You stop being tolerated and start being treasured. Now comes the most important question. How do you transform from someone who struggles for respect to someone who naturally commands it? How do you go from being overlooked to being honored? How do you rebuild what may have been damaged and create what may have never existed? The answer lies in what I call the respect revolution, a complete transformation of how you show up in the world. Let me tell you about a woman named Catherine who managed a team of 30 sales representatives at a technology company. When Catherine first took the position, she inherited a department that was failing. Morale was low, productivity was terrible, and turnover was so high that they couldn't keep good people for more than a few months. The previous manager had tried everything: bonuses, threats, motivational speakers, team building exercises, but nothing worked. The problem wasn't the strategies. The problem was respect, or rather, the complete lack of it. Catherine's first day was a disaster. She walked into the morning meeting expecting to introduce herself and share her vision. But what she found was a room full of people who had already decided she would fail, just like her predecessor. They sat with their arms crossed, checking their phones, barely making eye contact. When she spoke, some people talked among themselves. When she asked questions, she got one-word answers. When she shared her plans, she could see people rolling their eyes. At night, Catherine went home and had a moment of brutal honesty with herself. She realized that her team's disrespect wasn't really about her, it was about every broken promise they'd heard from management, every failed initiative they'd endured, every leader who had treated them like numbers instead of people. She understood that she couldn't demand their respect, she would have to earn it. One person at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. So Catherine began what she called her 90-day respect revolution. Instead of starting with big announcements and major changes, she started with something much more powerful. She started listening. Catherine spent her first 2 weeks doing nothing but having one-on-one conversations with every single person on her team. She didn't talk about goals or strategies or performance metrics. She asked about their challenges, their frustrations, their ideas for improvement. She asked about their families, their career aspirations, their concerns about the company's direction. But here's the crucial part. Catherine didn't just listen. She acted on what she heard. When someone mentioned that the outdated computer system was slowing down their work, Catherine immediately began the process to get new equipment. When someone complained about the uncomfortable chairs that were causing back problems, Catherine had ergonomic chairs delivered within a week. When someone suggested a more efficient way to track customer interactions, Catherine implemented the idea and gave full credit to the person who suggested it. By the end of the first month, something began to shift. People started arriving a few minutes earlier to meetings. The side conversations stopped when Catherine spoke. People began asking questions instead of giving minimal responses. Catherine noticed that her team members were starting to make eye contact and even occasionally smile during their interaction. But Catherine understood that earning respect required more than just fixing immediate problems. She knew she had to demonstrate the consistency we talked about earlier. So every morning, Catherine would walk through the office and personally greet each team member. Not a casual wave or a general good morning everyone, but individual personal greetings where she would ask specific questions about their projects or remember details from previous conversations. When Catherine said she would follow up on something, she would follow up that same day. When she promised to look into an issue, she would report back within 24 hours, even if it was just to say she was still working on it. When she scheduled meetings, she started them exactly on time and ended them when she said she would. When she made commitments to her team, she kept those commitments without exception. Catherine also understood the value principle we discussed. Instead of just asking her team to hit their numbers, she began asking how she could help them succeed. She started providing resources, training, and support that actually made their jobs easier and more effective. She began sharing information about company decisions that would affect their work, treating them as partners rather than just employees. She advocated for her team in upper management meetings, fighting for better compensation, more flexible schedules, and recognition for their achievements. By the 60th day, the transformation was remarkable. Not only had productivity increased, but the entire atmosphere of the department had changed. People were collaborating instead of competing. They were staying late to help colleagues finish important projects. They were coming to Catherine with ideas and solutions instead of just problems and complaints. Other departments began asking what Catherine had done to turn around her team so dramatically. But the real test came on day 75 when Catherine made a significant mistake. She had promised the team that a new software system would be implemented by a certain date. But due to budget constraints that were beyond her control, the implementation had to be delayed by 6 weeks. Catherine had two choices. She could blame upper management and make excuses, or she could take responsibility and focus on solutions. Catherine called an immediate team meeting and did something that shocked everyone. She apologized. Not a corporate apology full of vague language and blame shifting, but a genuine, personal apology where she took full responsibility for the miscommunication and the disappointment. She explained exactly what had happened, what she was doing to fix it, and how she would prevent similar situations in the future. Then she asked for their patience and their ideas for how to work around the delay instead of losing respect. Catherine actually gained more respect from her team that day. They saw her vulnerability, her integrity, and her commitment to treating them as adults who deserved the truth. They appreciated that she didn't try to manipulate them with excuses or false promises. They respected her even more because she respected them enough to be honest. By day 90, Catherine's department had become the highest performing team in the entire company. But more importantly, Catherine had become the kind of leader that people genuinely wanted to follow. Her team members would recommend the company to their friends specifically because of Catherine's leadership. Other managers would ask Catherine for advice on handling difficult situations. Upper management began consulting Catherine on major decisions because they respected her judgment and her ability to get results through people. The respect revolution isn't about manipulation or technique. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts respect through consistent character, genuine care for others, and unwavering integrity. It's about understanding that respect is not something you get, it's something you become worthy of. Your respect revolution starts today. It starts with how you treat the next person you encounter. It starts with the next promise you make and whether you keep it. It starts with the next opportunity you have to add value to someone's life instead of taking from it. It starts with looking in the mirror and asking yourself not, why don't people respect me, but how can I become more respectable? The world is waiting for people of character, people of consistency, people who add value wherever they go. The world is waiting for your respect revolution. The question is, are you ready to begin?